The Stone of Strength, birth of the ancient Greek shot put. Long before the marble stadiums gleamed in the sunlight of Olympia, before trumpets called men to glory and gods to witness their might, there were stones, rough, round, and heavy. In the hills of Eli's, shepherds and warriors alike would test their strength by hurling these stones across the fields, laughing, boasting, and measuring who among them possessed the favor of Zeus. From these humble contests would one day emerge one of the most enduring tests of human power, the throwing of the stone, or what we now call the shot put. The origins of the Olympic shot put reach deep into the soil of Greece's heroic age, when men believed strength was not just muscle but divine gift. Around the 8th century BCE, as the Olympic Games began to take shape in honor of Zeus at Olympia, contests of physical excellence were chosen to celebrate the human form as a reflection of the gods themselves. Among these trials, running, wrestling, jumping, and throwing, the act of hurling a stone came naturally to the Greek imagination. For a culture that revered both warrior skill and sculpted beauty, the throwing of a heavy stone combined both art and power in a single, resounding gesture. At first there was no iron sphere, no measured ring, and no judges holding scrolls to mark distance. The early throwers competed in open fields, often using stones selected from nearby rivers smoothed by water yet weighty enough to test the might of a man's shoulder and arm. These contests were simple. A line was drawn in the sand and each competitor took his stance, coiling his body like a bronze serpent ready to strike. The throw was less a technique and more a test of raw vigor. The stone would arc through the bright sky of Eli's and crash into the earth, leaving a mark as deep as the pride of the man who threw it. But even in simplicity, the Greeks sought perfection. Over time, the throwing of the stone became refined. In the ancient pentathlon, the supreme test of the all-around athlete, the event of throwing the stone was soon replaced by the discus and javelin, both lighter, more elegant weapons of athletic art. Yet among soldiers and local festivals, the stone throw remained. It was a sport of the commons and the warriors, less graceful perhaps, but more primal, a pure measure of brawn. For the hoplite who carried a shield and spear into battle, this throw mirrored the motion of war itself. The earliest recorded form of the shot put, or stone put, likely appeared in local festivals and training grounds rather than in the main Olympic program. The Spartans, obsessed with physical excellence, trained young men to throw stones to build arm and chest strength. "Let your arm be as the arm of Heracles," one Spartan trainer was said to shout, "for the gods favor those who throw the earth as if they command it." The idea of throwing the earth itself, of mastering nature through strength, was deeply woven into Greek philosophy. To hurl the stone was to challenge the weight of the world and assert one's place beneath the gods. By the 5th century BCE, artists had begun to immortalize these athletes in bronze and marble. Sculptors captured the poised form of men mid-motion, the body twisted, muscles taut, eyes fixed on the distance ahead. These statues were not mere portraits, they were ideals, embodiments of arete, the Greek concept of excellence. Whether in the discus, javelin, or stone throw, the athlete's body was poetry made flesh. The throw was no longer just an act of strength, it was a ritual of beauty, balance, and divine harmony. Legends grew around certain athletes of Olympia, who could throw stones heavier than any rival. One tale tells of a man named Eubotas of Cyrene, who after winning the foot race lifted a massive boulder near the altar of Zeus and hurled it farther than 3 men could roll it. The crowd gasped, and priests declared that Zeus himself had blessed his arm. That boulder, the story says, remained in Olympia for generations, marked with his name, proof of mortal glory carved into stone. In the following centuries, as Greek culture spread across the Aegean and into the broader world under Alexander the Great, the tradition of stone throwing traveled too. In Macedon, soldiers competed by tossing lead-weighted balls to prepare for war. In local games across the Greek colonies, the event evolved, and the stones became standardized in shape and size. Some historians suggest that early metal shots may have been cast during this time, crude iron spheres used in military exercises, bridging the gap between ancient tradition and the later formalized sport. What made these early contests remarkable was not the precision of rules but the spirit that animated them. To the ancient Greeks, every throw was an offering. Before each contest, athletes would anoint their bodies with oil, pray at the altar, and dedicate their strength to Zeus. The field was sacred ground, not a battlefield of rivals but a theater of human excellence. Victory was a sign of divine favor, defeat was a lesson in humility. The thrower did not simply seek to win, he sought to honor the gods through effort. Centuries later, when Rome absorbed Greece, the stone throw survived as a practice among soldiers and athletes, though often stripped of its sacred aura. Yet even then, its essence, the contest between man and weight, strength and gravity, endured. When the modern Olympic Games were revived in 1896 in Athens, the shot put was among the featured events, a quiet homage to those ancient contests beneath the Greek sun. The smooth iron shot that men and women throw today is, in spirit, the descendant of those ancient stones once flung in the dust of Olympia. To imagine the early days of the shot put is to step back into that primal moment when human beings first celebrated strength not for conquest, but for its own beauty. Picture it, the morning light spilling over Mount Kronos, the smell of olive oil and dust in the air, the sound of sandals scraping against earth. A young man stands before the line, a heavy stone in his hand. He breathes deeply, feeling the world's weight in his palm. Around him, the crowd murmurs: farmers, priests, travelers, children. He bends, twists, and drives the stone forward with a cry that echoes through the valley. The stone flies, glinting in the sun, before striking the ground and rolling to rest. Silence follows, then applause, and the athlete smiles. For a moment, he feels the favor of Zeus. In that simple gesture, the lifting, the heaving, the release, lies the essence of humanity's eternal pursuit: to rise above limitation, to transform raw strength into art, and to honor the gods through the excellence of the body. The shot put began not as a sport, but as a celebration, a testament to what it means to be human, to lift the earth itself and cast it toward the sky.